Hi, I'm Natalie Perez and I'm a product designer living in Denver, Colorado, and I've worked between physical and digital design for about 14 years. I'm taking you today on a journey of a country's colonialist legacy and how design has been disrupting it by crafting more inclusive futures. Colonization. What a beautiful, strong, and charged word. Perfect for family gatherings and lively conversations. But I'm actually going to talk about how to undo it. In my case, it is deeply tied into my life story and my identity. This journey starts in the center of this beautiful group of islands, the Dominican Republic, inhabited by what used to be the Taino people before being discovered. You can blame us for concepts and words like barbecue, hurricane, manatee, hammocks, and canoes. But to be fair, what used to be called Haiti or Highland by the Taino people and is now the Dominican Republic was the guinea pig in Spain's colonization of the Americas. We had it all: the first cathedral, the first hospital, the first university, fortress, all those fun modern things. The Spaniards came in 1492. Census records of 1514 reveal that 40% of Spanish men on the island were already married to Taino women. Nevertheless, Spanish documents declared that the Tainos were extinct by 1550. To add more to that mix, between the year 1560 and 1850, about 4.7 million enslaved African people were transported to the Caribbean from West Africa. So, what does that look like today? An array of beautiful brown people, lighter and darker, with also other nationalities added to that mix. But in a country that historically has had their history rewritten for them, how do Dominicans see themselves? The Dominican Republic is so obsessed with its race that in its mandatory national ID card, there was a space for the level of brownness of your skin. This is from 2006 and I think it's gone by now. But as many colonized countries experience this same issue, there is a constant measurement of people's level of brownness to actually measure the level of whiteness. And that gaze that we have, let's call it aspirational, transpires through everything. Right here, visible in a physical ad that I see on the way from the airport to my parents' house when I come visit them. Clearly on the lighter side of that level of brownness we were talking about. So wait a minute. If the Dominican Republic was colonized so long ago, why am I talking about this? My purpose for this talk is to recognize and address the colonial legacies embedded in the design world and to shed light so that we all work towards a more just and holistic approach to design for all communities. How do we do that? By decolonizing design. And what is decolonizing design? It is a multifaceted effort that seeks to reshape design practices, values, and products to be more inclusive, equitable, and culturally sensitive. And first, I want to shed light to a space where the divide is wide, in my opinion, and it's the mobile phone usage space. So there are currently two ways to use a mobile phone. You either prepay for your text, data, and minutes, or you have a contract where you pay after you use. In Latin American countries, there's a significant inequity between those prepaid and postpaid plans, primarily due to differences in accessibility and cost structure. The divide disproportionately affects those low-income individuals and perpetuates economic disparities. In the case of the prepaid plans, they're more expensive per unit, so text, data, and megabytes are more expensive. Users pay up front, but in small increments, but can also lead to higher overall costs. And they're also favored by low-income individuals who lack financial stability or access to credit and banks. The postpaid plans offer lower per unit costs in bundled packages, making them more cost-effective, but they require credit checks, proof of income, or bank accounts, which exclude a lot of people in informal economies. But don't take my word for it. These companies make a clear distinction between their users. And this is reflected in the current site of the second largest mobile phone company in the Dominican Republic. On the left, we have the prepaid, beautiful, darker woman. And on the right, we have the lighter, postpaid, beautiful, lighter woman. This is the largest phone company in Latin America, and this is their page for Dominican people. Very light, all of them. Also, take into account the words in English to describe their plans. So what if there is a hurricane coming? Something that happens every single year, sometimes even multiple times a year. What if you're one of those people that have prepaid plans? You survive through side gigs, and since there's a hurricane coming, you didn't get much work or money that week because everything is shutting down. If you don't have enough data, text, or minutes, how are you going to know what to expect, or if your loved ones are okay, or simply stay updated with the news? I don't mean to catastrophize, but these are the people that are most affected by these circumstances. The system that has set them up to communicate often does not allow them to do so. So what if I am in the Dominican Republic? I've run out of minutes and data. I'm in a building with Wi-Fi and I order my Uber. I exit the building and my location pin is not accurate, so my Uber driver can't find me. I personally learned about this by talking to Uber drivers in the Dominican Republic and trying to find by curiosity what was their biggest pain point. Most likely, Uber is aware of this, but this issue is realistically beyond their control. But what if they're actually listening and seeing how Dominican people ride? This is a very common transportation method, like a taxi in a motor ride called motoconcho. I was elated to see that Uber has included this transportation method that is not only widely used by people without car access, but is significantly cheaper than a regular Uber drive. It also has a delivery option that is widely used and needed there, benefiting not only the people sending and receiving packages, but also the people doing these rides, creating jobs and helping the microeconomy. Now, there are dozens of startups in the Dominican Republic working on edtech, fintech, AI, software service that are most likely doing incredible work. But for the purpose of this talk and for us who live in the US or abroad, for us who work in global products or simply design products that are touched by people that come from everywhere, we do have a responsibility to see the human behind our products. We so often focus on data, but as this quote says, we forget about the people behind that data. And that allows us to divorce ourselves from that responsibility of what the data can actually do. Decolonizing design is not a one-time process, but an ongoing commitment, and it requires continuous learning and active listening, a willingness to challenge all those conventional methods. Decolonizing the design space makes it more inclusive, resilient, and responsive to the needs of all communities, not just those historically centered. But what can we do about it? My advice: leaders, please advocate for systemic changes that prioritize diversity in hiring and partnerships. Provide opportunities to underrepresented groups to rise into leadership roles. Move beyond those KPIs and metrics and purely quantitative outcomes like clicks and conversion rates, and measure success by how well designs resonate with diverse users. Designers, ensure your designs are accessible to all, including users with disabilities, speakers of non-dominant languages, and those with limited digital literacy like your grandpa and grandma. Design for inclusivity, considering factors like economic barriers, regional connectivity, and device limitations. Seek out resources, attend workshops, and engage in conversations about equity in design. To end this talk, I can say this generation has a thirst to embrace our African and Taino ancestry, and it's alive in architecture, fashion, music, creative direction, and initiatives that embrace who we are. So lucky to call all these people in this slide my personal friends. But this is just a sliver of the talent there. Embracing our uniqueness is what makes us special. If not, ask Nike. Thank you very, very much.